Hello beautiful people, it's Sindafam. Welcome to the channel. Today we're back again with another video from GB News. Let's check it out together.
We're going to have a little look now at people's thoughts returning now away from the Day of the Dead and all of that to the royal state visit to Kenya. And after the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge's controversial visit to the Caribbean in 2022, where Britain's historical links to slavery took centre stage, eyebrows are being raised as King Charles travels to Kenya today to start his first visit to a Commonwealth country as Britain's monarch.
So Buckingham Palace has confirmed he will touch on the painful aspects of Britain's relationship with Kenya, but will not apologise directly for a colonial history, Britain's colonial history.
So is Charles wrong for not apologising to the people of Kenya? Here's what some of you had to say about this.
Monarchy needs to keep promoting the United Kingdom all around the world, so I'm all for the Kenya trip. However, what I'm not for is the monarchy or anybody in Parliament, whether it be the English, Welsh, Scottish Parliaments, apologising for what happened in the past. So please, keep the trips going, but please do not apologise, because you're not apologising on my behalf.
So King Charles is off to Kenya on our behalf, and I'm delighted and hope he has a successful trip. But we, the British people, and the King does have nothing whatsoever to apologise for. Yes, we operated slavery when it was legal. We gave these people a better way of life from everything I've read. And also, didn't we abolish slavery? Weren't we responsible for that? And so I'm sorry, but absolutely not. Nothing to apologise for. End of.
Should he take personal responsibility and accountability for the actions of his ancestors? I'm really not sure that he should. The most important thing for King Charles and the world in which we currently live is to learn from the mistakes of the past, and we must all do our utmost to make sure that we don't repeat them in the future.
Well, royal broadcaster and historian Rafe Manku believes it is enough where, as anti-racism activist 𝑗𝑜𝑖𝑛 thinks the king should go further and apologise. Why do you think that? Why do you think, why does it need to be said?
Oh, many reasons. We have to make amends, right? Rafe, I'm hoping you're in agreement with that. We've got to make amends. And
He's not the worst. He's not the worst.
I know, right? But I'll just give you a quote because I think it's really important. So we will not blame them for the crimes, or blame him for the crimes of his ancestors. But, or if, he relinquishes the royal rights of his ancestors, okay? So that's the first part. But as long as he claims their rights, then, by virtue of descent, he must shoulder the responsibility of their crimes. It's one of my favourite quotes. Hold on a second.
But what are those rights? Let us know what those rights are.
Let me just explain. His name is James Connolly. He's an Irish Republican and a socialist. So
right, I know who he is.
So, moral of the tale. Ah, okay. Right. Oh, that's good.
I know
that's
who Connolly is.
Oh, okay, that's good. So, moral of the tale is just in case if it hasn't resonated. If you inherit something, you should take the good, the bad, and the ugly. Anything less than that is hypocritical.
But if he's acknowledging the hurt,
technically.
he's acknowledged the hurt, but to actually say the word sorry, it means payments have to be made, and that opens the door.
I'm so glad you said that. So that is very true, and I will concede on that point. So an apology basically means an admission of guilt, which means an admission of liability, which opens the floodgates for reparations, which in turn leads to basically UK becoming bankrupt, of course, and all of us here in the studio becoming refugees heading to France on small boats. So I appreciate the fact that if we open the floodgates to reparations, it could cause havoc. So I appreciate that point, and that's why I believe that King Charles will probably just stick with expressing remorse as opposed to apologising and continuously apologising, right?
So in essence, anybody who takes over the throne or takes on the throne should apologize over and over again. So let me get this straight. So if your father, or let's say your grandfather, was a thief and your grandfather stole something, so instead of them arresting your grandfather, should the police or the cops come to arrest you instead? Because it's your lineage, right? Is your history, and is your grandfather, is your ancestor too, Abi? So if your grandfather stole something, instead of them arresting your grandfather, and your grandfather has already died or he's dead, and they are looking for who to blame or who to arrest, so if they don't find your grandfather, you should be the next person to be arrested, right? If that is what they all agree, no problem. Because The royal family saying sorry, or the king or King Charles saying sorry for something his ancestors did. Ancestors long, long time ago. And remember that Britain as well abolished slavery. So, I mean, that part of them abolishing slavery was a deed or a move to correct the wrongs of their involvement. So why is it only Britain that people are pointing their hands to blaming? Or were they wrong for abolishing slavery? Because it's not making sense. And should you be arrested? Should you be held accountable for something your father did, or something your ancestor grandfather did, or something a family member of yours did? Should you be the one who held accountable, and should you be responsible for their action instead? Let us know in the comment below.
What do you think of all of that, Rafe?
Well, I'm a lot more sympathetic, actually, to this issue than, for example, to the ludicrous debates we have about slavery, which was 200 years ago, and Britain has a proud legacy in abolishing the slave trade. This actually is one of the most shameful periods in British imperial history, what happened in Kenya in the 1950s, and the British did overreact in its suppression of the Mau Mau uprising. So I think it's right that the King should...
And Churchill.
I think it's right that the King should actually express regret and sorrow as he is, without apologising, and actually he's going to go a long way to actually learning more about what happened during that period. But let's also acknowledge the British were responding to absolute savagery by the Mau Mau themselves, the brutal murdering of whites and African Kenyans as well, hacking them to death with pangas, with machetes, burning them alive. The house of my grandmother's cousin, a Polish Prince Piecha, was set on fire in an attempt to burn my relations down. No one's been held to account from the Mau Mau side. No one's been apologising on the Mau Mau side. There were faults on both sides, and in the spirit of truth and reconciliation, we should go forward. But it seems always as if it's only Britain that's singled out. Britain's always the evildoer, and everything else is brushed under the carpet.
Can I just address that point? I think that's a really valid point, and I just want to add some context. So I agree with you. We do tend to focus on the British, and that's partly due to the British education system, because the British education system, this government decided to start black history, African history, from the 15th and 16th century, where black people were enslaved by white people. So we are just literally telling loads of white people that they're superior, and we're literally telling loads of black people that they're inferior, and we're also telling black people that they should continuously be unhappy with white people because their education tells them so. We don't start it from Arabs, we don't start it from Africans. And just to actually answer your point directly, if we could find the Arabs and the Africans that were a part of kind of oppressing African people, I think that would be a part of the equation in terms of reparations and apologies. The reason why we focus on the UK specifically is because the UK, they're very meticulous and organised. I would give credit where it's due. They actually left 200 years of evidence, 200 years of evidence of crimes against African people. So this is why we focus on the British Empire and British people, notwithstanding the fact that, of course, hold on a second, notwithstanding the fact that the British Empire, hold on a second, the British Empire actually, just so you know, slavers, they gave people that look like me their surnames, right? So we've also got the British education system that starts everything from slavery. We've got the fact that the British Empire made sure that they named black people with their surnames. So all of these things can be traced back, and of course we have the evidence, 200 years of clear-cut evidence.
Hold on a second, hold on.
I'm answering your question. I'm answering your question, Rafe. You just spoke about the fact that why we keep focusing on the British. I'm telling you why. I've just told you British education system, and I've also told you that
why aren't we holding to account the people who were taking part in the 1950s Mau Mau uprising?
And we
know
should
who these
include those
people are. We're not talking about things from
and I'm
200
agreeing
years
with you,
ago.
Rafe.
And let's just also acknowledge,
we should include those people.
in the decades after independence in 1963, Kenya became the success story of Africa. Without any mineral resources, it became the economic and political showpiece for Africa. Why? Because of its British colonial inheritance. Its parliamentary democracy, the constitutional separation of powers, its British-based military, civil service and police, all of the institutions. And for 45 years, thanks to that British heritage and the leadership of President Kenyatta, Kenya became a showpiece. The last 15 years haven't been that bad, but Kenya haven't been that good. But Kenya is still one of the top three. Well, my family were born in Kenya and they still live in Kenya and they call it Kenya. I don't need to lecture from BLM activists on how to pronounce Kenya.
You see what she just did there? Ignore or not point the blame at the Arabs or at Africans. Ignore their deed. Only focus on the white man, or only focus on Britain because it is easier to blame the white man and make them feel guilty than to blame an Arab man or blame an African man, because obviously they were confused, they don't know what they were doing, they were tricked into doing it. That's the ideology, or that's the mindset that is not even making sense. Because how do you think, if Africans did not enslave their brothers, did not sell their brothers, how do you think people are going to come and force them to sell their brothers or trick them to sell their brothers or whatever? How do you think it's possible? Like, make it make sense. This thing has already been existing long time ago. And the fact that you're excluding some other group of people and focusing only on just some particular group of people says, like, it just goes to tell you where your rage is at, or who your rage is at. And let's not forget that modern slavery exists. Why are people talking about things of the past and dwelling their focus more on things on the past? Nobody is talking about modern day slavery. I tell you why. Because the white man is not involved. Because if the white man were to be involved in the modern day slavery that we're talking about today, all hell will break loose. But of course, nobody, their primary focus is not on that or on this, because I mean, it doesn't concern the white man if the white man is not involved in it. So who freaking cares? Nobody.
No, it's Kenya. That's a British way of explaining it.
Well,
so that's the difference, right? So you were born in Kenya. I wasn't born in Kenya. I was born here.
But my,
so the British pronunciation is actually
family
Kenya.
Were actually. Thanks so much.
Well, the British education system tells you that you should pronounce it as Kenya. Just so you know, I went through it.
Thanks so much.
And I'm glad that you told me that, because
it's just
the British
like people in the West calling it Mumbai when all Indians say Bombay. All right, we don't need to have this.
This is why it's so important to experience lived experiences. Thank you, Eamon. Sorry.
When you come in here, you were basically saying, look, it's a simple thing to do. It's the right thing.
Yeah.
Charles should say, sorry, that's easy. What I'm learning, listening to both of you,
thank you.
It's not easy.
No, it's not. It's quite convoluted, especially when you address and take in consideration my points as well as race points. It's very convoluted. And when we talk about benefits, right? So you obviously spoke about the benefits in terms of colonialism, and I find that really uncomfortable because we're kind of missing the main point here. Let me just say something. Can I just finish my point, please? Let's just talk about benefits, because that's your main point here, right? So in terms of benefits, well, first and foremost, you cannot say that black people benefit from colonialism and slavery. That
absolutely
would actually... Okay, hold on a second. Well, let's just be clear. It's basically, by the same token, you were also saying that, I don't know... Israel benefited Jews and Hitler benefited due to the Holocaust. You're basically saying that in terms of your basic logic. You're also saying that it applies to Israel and Jews and those that were oppressed.
Marxist.
I'm not a Marxist. I'm not. That's your prejudice. But that's your prejudice.
Kenya benefits hugely from its colonial inheritance. Britain just gave in 2022 £100 million of investment. Canada that same year gave £40 million investment. Why? Because of their British Commonwealth associations and British Commonwealth links. The top 3 countries in Africa for $1 million investments are Nigeria, South Africa and Kenya. What's the common link there? All former British colonies.
Okay. All right. So you're basically saying that we should be okay with being oppressed, enslaved, and colonized. That's what you're basically saying.
I'm saying you need to actually...
Guys, we're out of time. I don't know what way to put this. Just blow the whistle. That's it. There's so much more we could be talking about, and so much more we've got answered.
We didn't get to the bottom. One very simple question is what's the Mau Mau uprising got to do with the king? He didn't make the decision. It's not a political...
But I already told you. If you inherit the royal rights of your family, then you take the good, the bad and the ugly with it. That is why. The bad and the ugly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was actually waiting for her to bring up the colonialism topic or talk, and she actually did justice, or she actually did it, because obviously when they talk slavery, she brings colonialism to the subject or to the topic, which doesn't even make sense. You talk, I talk over you, and if you talk over me, it's going to be a problem, because you're always going to let me finish, and I'm not going to let you finish your talk point or finish your point of view. I'm always going to interrupt you when you speak or when you're saying something. And if you interrupt what I'm saying, then it's going to be a problem, because how dare you not let me speak as a black person, or how dare you not let me air my views as a black person, because you're supposed to always allow me to speak while I interrupt you only. I am only supposed to interrupt you. None of this is making sense. We talk about slavery, we talk about colonialism, whatever, but nobody talks about how we should move past it and correct the wrongs and try to do better as a society. It's no surprise because people profit or make their daily income or are paid huge amount of money to promote this or base off their talking point on slavery, colonialism, you name it, or anything victimhood, oppression, whatever. Is no surprise at all, but we need to do better as a society. But let me know what you think. I'm sure tons of people have interesting things to share. I would really love to share that. You can share the useful information you think might be really helpful. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe and all of that stuff. And until next time, see you in the next video.